The American Revolution, also known as the American War of Independence, was a transformative period in the history of North America, ultimately leading to the birth of the United States of America. Spanning from 1765 to 1783, this epic political and military struggle saw 13 of Great Britain's North American colonies reject British imperial rule and fight for their sovereignty. Seeds of Revolution, the causes. The roots of the American Revolution lie in a complex interplay of political, economic, and social factors that gradually eroded the relationship between Great Britain and its American colonies. For a long period preceding the Revolution, the colonies had enjoyed a significant degree of autonomy, a period often referred to as salutary neglect. However, following the costly French and Indian War, 1754–1763, the British government sought to exert greater control over the colonies and make them contribute to the empire's finances. This shift in policy ignited resentment and resistance among the colonists. 1. Taxation without representation. A central grievance of the American colonists was the imposition of taxes by the British Parliament without any colonial representation. The colonists argued that as they had no elected representatives in Parliament, they should not be subjected to its taxation. The cry of, "No taxation without representation," became a rallying call for the burgeoning revolutionary movement. Acts such as the Stamp Act, 1765, which levied taxes on various paper goods, and the Townshend Acts, 1767, which imposed duties on goods like tea, glass, and paper, fueled colonial anger and protests. 2. Economic policies and restrictions. British economic policies, particularly the Navigation Acts, aimed to regulate colonial trade to benefit the mother country. These acts restricted colonial trade with other nations and mandated that certain goods could only be shipped to England. While these policies had been in place for some time, stricter enforcement after the French and Indian War intensified colonial discontent. The colonists felt their economic growth was being stifled by these regulations. 3. The French and Indian War, 1754–1763. This war, fought between Great Britain and France for control of North America, had profound implications for the relationship between Britain and its colonies. While the British victory expanded their territory, it also left them with a substantial debt. The British government believed that the colonies should bear some of the financial burden for the defense during the war, leading to the imposition of new taxes that the colonists vehemently opposed. 4. Growing sense of American identity. Over time, the colonists developed a distinct American identity, separate from that of Great Britain. Factors such as geographic distance, diverse social and economic conditions, and the experience of self-governance fostered a sense of unity and a belief in their own unique character and destiny. This growing sense of identity made them increasingly resistant to external control from Britain. 5. The Enlightenment and ideas of liberty. The intellectual currents of the Enlightenment, with its emphasis on natural rights, liberty, and self-governance, profoundly influenced colonial thinkers and leaders. Philosophers like John Locke articulated ideas about government by consent and the rights of individuals, which resonated deeply with the colonists and provided a philosophical basis for their resistance. 6. Specific acts of British interference. Several specific actions by the British government further inflamed tensions. The Quartering Act, 1765. This act required the colonists to provide housing and supplies for British troops stationed in the colonies, which was seen as an infringement on their autonomy and a financial burden. The Boston Massacre, 1770. The killing of 5 colonists by British soldiers during a protest in Boston heightened anti-British sentiment and became a powerful symbol of British oppression. The Tea Act, 1773. While this act actually lowered the price of tea, it granted the British East India Company a monopoly on tea sales in the colonies, which was seen as another attempt to exert control and undermine colonial merchants. The Boston Tea Party, 1773. In response to the Tea Act, a group of colonists disguised as Native Americans destroyed a shipment of tea in Boston Harbor, a bold act of defiance that further escalated tensions. The Intolerable Acts, 1774. In retaliation for the Boston Tea Party, the British Parliament passed a series of punitive measures known as the Intolerable Acts, or Coercive Acts. These acts closed the port of Boston, curtailed self-governance in Massachusetts, allowed British officials to be tried in England, and expanded the Quartering Act. These acts were seen as a direct assault on colonial liberties and galvanized intercolonial unity. The spark of war, from protest to conflict. The escalating tensions culminated in the outbreak of armed conflict in 1775. The First Continental Congress, 1774, in response to the intolerable acts, delegates from 12 colonies, Georgia did not attend, met in Philadelphia to discuss a unified response to British policies. The Congress adopted a Declaration of Rights and Grievances, called for a boycott of British goods, and formed colonial militias. The battles of Lexington and Concord, April 19, 1775, British troops marched to Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts, to seize colonial military supplies. They were met by colonial militias, and the ensuing skirmishes marked the beginning of the Revolutionary War. The shot heard round the world at Lexington ignited the armed struggle for independence. The Second Continental Congress, 1775–1781, as the conflict widened, the Second Continental Congress convened in Philadelphia. This body assumed the responsibilities of a national government, formed the Continental Army, appointed George Washington as its commander-in-chief, and eventually declared independence. The fight for independence, key events and turning points. The Revolutionary War was a protracted and challenging conflict for the American colonists, who faced a formidable British military. However, a combination of factors ultimately led to their victory. Declaration of Independence, July 4, 1776, this pivotal document, primarily authored by Thomas Jefferson, formally declared the 13 colonies independent from Great Britain. Grounded in Enlightenment ideals, it asserted the inherent rights of individuals to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and proclaimed the right of the people to alter or abolish a destructive government. The Declaration served as a powerful statement of American ideals and a rallying cry for the patriot cause. Early struggles and perseverance. The Continental Army faced numerous challenges in the early years of the war, including a lack of supplies, training, and funding. They suffered significant defeats, such as the loss of New York City in 1776. However, Washington's leadership and the resilience of the American forces, demonstrated in victories at Trenton and Princeton in the winter of 1776–1777, kept the revolutionary cause alive. The Battle of Saratoga, 1777, this decisive American victory over British forces in upstate New York proved to be a major turning point in the war. It not only boosted American morale but also convinced France to formally ally with the United States in 1778, providing crucial military and financial support. Foreign intervention. The alliance with France was critical to the American victory. French naval power helped to counter the British fleet, and French troops participated in key battles. Spain and the Netherlands also joined the war against Great Britain, further stretching British resources. The Southern Campaign. In the later stages of the war, the conflict shifted to the southern colonies. While the British initially achieved some successes, the Continental Army, under the command of figures like Nathanael Greene, employed effective strategies, including guerrilla warfare, to wear down the British forces. The Siege of Yorktown, 1781, the final major battle of the war occurred at Yorktown, Virginia. A combined Franco-American force besieged a large British army under the command of Lord Cornwallis. With the French Navy blocking any escape by sea, Cornwallis was forced to surrender in October 1781. This decisive victory effectively ended major military operations in North America. The dawn of a new nation, outcomes and legacy. The American Revolution had profound and lasting consequences, not only for the newly formed United States but also for the world. Independence of the United States. The most immediate and significant outcome was the recognition of the United States of America as a sovereign and independent nation by Great Britain. The Treaty of Paris, signed in 1783, formally ended the war and established the boundaries of the new nation. Establishment of a republic. The revolution led to the creation of a republic, a government based on the consent of the governed, without a monarchy or hereditary aristocracy. This was a radical departure from the prevailing forms of government in Europe at the time. The Articles of Confederation. The first attempt at a unified government for the United States was the Articles of Confederation, adopted in 1777. However, this system proved to be weak and ineffective, lacking a strong central authority. The United States Constitution. Recognizing the shortcomings of the Articles of Confederation, American leaders convened the Constitutional Convention in 1787. This convention produced the United States Constitution, a landmark document that established a federal system of government with a balance of powers among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. The Constitution, along with the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments guaranteeing fundamental rights and freedoms, laid the foundation for American governance and continues to shape the nation today. Expansion and Western development. The Revolution opened up vast territories in North America for westward expansion by American settlers. The new government faced the challenge of organizing these territories and incorporating them into the Union. Impact on slavery. The ideals of liberty and equality espoused during the Revolution led to increased debate and some limited steps towards the abolition of slavery in the northern states. However, slavery remained deeply entrenched in the South, creating a fundamental contradiction that would eventually lead to the Civil War. Influence on other revolutions. The American Revolution served as an inspiration for other movements for independence and self-governance around the world, most notably the French Revolution. The success of the American colonists in overthrowing colonial rule demonstrated that revolutionary change was possible. Shifting international power dynamics. The American Revolution significantly altered the global balance of power, weakening the British Empire and creating a new independent nation that would eventually become a major world power. The idea of Republican motherhood. The Revolution also influenced ideas about the role of women in the new republic. The concept of Republican motherhood emerged, emphasizing the importance of women in instilling civic virtue and Republican values in their children, thus contributing to the success of the Republic. This led to increased emphasis on female education. In conclusion, the American Revolution was a watershed moment in history. Born out of colonial grievances against British rule, fueled by Enlightenment ideals, and achieved through a hard-fought war, it resulted in the creation of a new nation founded on the principles of liberty, self-governance, and individual rights. The revolution's outcomes continue to shape the United States and have had a lasting impact on the course of global history.